Ready? Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Lakewood City Council agenda for this Monday, April 21, 2025. We start tonight with a regular agenda and a meeting, and then council turns to a study session later this night. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for those watching from home. We'll start the meeting with the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bell,
Here.
Councilmember Boki. Councilmember Brandstetter has been excused. Councilmember Lorisella. Here. Councilmember Pearson,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Moss. Here. And Mayor Whalen.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Well, thank you very much. Now, if you'd please stand and join me in a moment of silence in honor and recognition of the passing of a world leader, Pope Francis, not just a religious figure, but certainly a world figure for many, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, again, thank you all for joining us tonight. We have a few presentations and proclamations to start our evening. The first is the recognition of the Clover Park School District's Daffodil Princesses. And if I can have Brenda Saron from Clover Park High School, Aaron McAvoy from Lakes High School, and Violet Johnson from Harrison Prep join me at the podium. Again. Well, we love recognizing youth for their contributions to the community here in Lakewood, and recognition of the Clover Park School District Daffodil Princesses is such an occasion. So I just want to give a little bit of information history. One of the most important aspects of the festival is the selection of the Daffodil Princesses. It's a nonprofit organization that's been officially operating in and around Pierce County since 1934. A group of 23 high school seniors were selected to the Daffodil Royal Court this year. These young women travel throughout Pierce County and even to the legislature in Olympia. At their various appearances and events, they represent their schools and their cities and towns. The women appointed to the court are selected for their inner beauty, scholastic achievements, and their positions as leaders in their respective communities. These young women selected to hold the title of Daffodil Princess spend their senior year dedicated to this program. In the process, they learned valuable lessons, including building self-confidence, networking with notable community leaders, and developing key personal skills that will benefit them far into the future. And for their contributions to their schools and certainly to our community and a recognition of the advancements they're making for their individual selves, we congratulate these three young ladies, Brenda, Aaron, and Violet, and we wish you luck as you work toward earning your Daffodil Queen title. So I'm going to give you each a certificate in thanks of your recognition and contributions, and then we'll take a photograph with all of us. So Brenda, there you go. Congratulations. Yeah, exactly. You'll learn the elbow, wrist thing soon enough, I think, but Violet, there you go. Good to see you. Yes, another great member of our youth council. And Aaron's not here tonight, is that correct? Okay, so we'll save this for Aaron. And council, if you want to join me up at the front here, and we'll make sure we have a photograph. Ladies, come on, unless you want to say a few words about the program, you're welcome to.
What?
Yeah, tell us what it's meant to you individually.
Hello. Well, what this program has meant to me is like a lot of connection, especially with 22 other girls. And it's very, very scary at first, but you do it scared and you meet so many wonderful people and it becomes one of the greatest highlights of your whole life. And that's something that I think money could never ever buy. And I'm really thankful to the Daffodil Festival.
Violet?
Hello, I'm Princess Violet from Harrison Preparatory, and from this whole experience, it's just a great ordeal. From scooping up little pebbles of like mac and cheese at a food bank to reading to little children and just having to do public speaking, it's just a great thing. And it's a lot of developing and getting to know people in my community. Thank you.
Next, we have a proclamation recognizing April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And if Stephanie Sachs with Rebuilding Hope's Clinical Director, Rebuilding Hope Sexual Assault Center would meet me at the podium, present the proclamation. Come on. Well, greetings, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. This is an especially appropriate proclamation to bring awareness to tragedies that impact many folks and women, especially in our community. Whereas April has been declared Sexual Assault Awareness Month, a time to bring attention to this widespread issue of sexual violence and empower communities to take action. And whereas this year's theme, Together We Act, United We Change, highlights the power of working together to create safer, more respectful environments for all. And whereas sexual abuse, assault, and harassment affect individuals of every background, and whereas according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention nationally, almost half of all women and almost 1 in 3 men experience sexual assault in their lifetime. And at least 1 in 4 girls and as many as 1 in 6 boys are abused before turning 18 years of age. And at least half of our LGBTQ community members are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. And whereas while great strides have been accomplished in raising awareness, establishing state and federal funding for and improving public policies, responding to sexual assault communities, they continue to struggle with the myths and harms perpetuated by systemic racism, sexism, and oppression, resulting in assault and abuse. And whereas continued and increased prioritization and investment into raising visibility to sexual assault and abuse awareness, prevention, and survivor response and support is and always will be critical to dismantling the myths, beliefs, behaviors, and systems that promote it. And whereas Pierce County Rape Relief, now known as Rebuilding Hope Sexual Assault Center, was incorporated in 1975 and is rumored to be the longest continuously operating community sexual assault center in Washington State. And whereas after celebrating 50 years of dedicated service as Pierce County's designated sexual assault center, Rebuilding Hope remains committed to its mission to provide support, promote healing, and to partner to end sexual violence. Rebuilding Hope provides confidential, comprehensive, lifelong support to sexual assault and abuse survivors and their loved ones of any form of sexual violence, regardless of when it happened, regardless of their relationship to the offender, and regardless of whether the violence was ever reported. Through collaboration, education, and prevention, Rebuilding Hope works to eradicate the beliefs and behaviors that promote sexual violence in our community. Now therefore, the Lakewood City Council does hereby proclaim the month of April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And we encourage all residents to seek information, education, and support relating to sexual assault and abuse. Proclaim this 21st day of April 2025, all of us on the Lakewood City Council. And Stephanie, thank you for coming tonight. If you'd like to share a few words.
So much.
For you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Whalen, Deputy Mayor Moss, and all the council members for supporting this important proclamation today. Establishing a month in honor of sexual assault awareness is in and of itself an indicator that our community and world is not what it ought to be. Not yet. My name is Stephanie Sachs, and I have served at Rebuilding Hope as a clinical director for 31 years. We know that a sexual assault occurs every 3 hours in Washington state, and a survey of Washingtonians found that 61.2% of women and 34.4% of men have experienced sexual violence during their lifetime. Sexual assault and its devastating effects are rippling throughout our community every day, across schools and workplaces, in families and homes, in our military, in our neighborhoods, and across social media platforms. They are the local youth calling our helpline anonymously to ask questions they're too nervous or afraid to ask adults. They're the panicking parents calling in a whisper after their kids have gone to bed, trying to figure out what to do to protect them. They're the survivor who was just assaulted, reaching out with courage, not knowing where to go or what to do. It's an 80-year-old woman reaching out to share for the first time what happened to them when they were a child. It's the spouse of a survivor reaching out in crisis because they don't know how to support the person they love. For over 50 years, Rebuilding Hope has faithfully answered the calls from survivors and the community across Lakewood and Pierce County to listen, to learn, to inform, to catalyze change, and so often just to believe, to sit with the survivor, to bear witness to their experience and their journey, to assure them they are believed, they are supported, and that this burden never should have been and is not theirs to bear, not alone. Today, Rebuilding Hope is grateful to answer some of those calls in deep community and collaboration with incredible providers like Oasis Youth Center, the Crystal Judson Family Justice Center, Our Sister's House, and the Mary Bridge Child Advocacy and Child Abuse Intervention Department, and many, many more. We are also proud to serve a community like the City of Lakewood that prioritizes human services funding for the very crisis stabilization services that Rebuilding Hope provides to individuals and families impacted by sexual assault and abuse. I'm here today to accept this proclamation and to remain hopeful that each of us stands together in support of that vision to end sexual violence and with a commitment to take action. Thank you for taking action today by presenting this proclamation that both raises awareness about sexual assault and its impacts and raises awareness about critical services the city invests in to support survivors and to put an end to this violence. Together, we can do a better job of creating a safe, protective, and supportive community that Lakewood deserves. Thank you for your time today and for the proclamation.
There you go. Okay, great. Thank you for joining us for that. We now turn to the public comment section of tonight's agenda. Public comments are accepted by mail, email, or live, virtual, or in-person comment. Comments may be submitted in advance by mail or email to our city clerk, Ms. Brianna Schumacher, at 6,000 Main Street Southwest here in Lakewood, or via email to bschumacher@cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to an hour before the meeting have been provided to the council. And for purposes of transparency and a good record, we ask the city clerk to read the names of those who have submitted written comments in advance.
Mayor, we received written comments in advance from Jen Imhol and Tricia Parsons.
Thank you very much. Please note tonight there is a public hearing on the 5-year 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan, as well as the fiscal 25 annual action plan. So if you are here to provide testimony specific to these items, please wait until the public hearing section of tonight's agenda. Members of the audience may comment on any item pertaining to city business under the public comment period. We simply ask that if you've signed up, or if you haven't signed up, that's okay too. You're welcome to approach the podium or queue up and state your name and residence, like Paul Boki, Lakewood, Washington, and then you'll get 3 minutes on the clock, and we will appreciate receiving your public comment. Virtual comments are also authorized here in the city of Lakewood. If you'd like to provide live virtual public comment via Zoom, please join the Zoom meeting as an attendee by dialing the telephone number 253-215-8782, and then enter the meeting ID number 868-7263-2373. Once in the Zoom room, please use the raise the hand feature and you will be called on accordingly. So what I typically do in these meetings is I call on either the folks on Zoom first and then in person, then we switch the next week. So this week, we're going to call on those who have first appeared via Zoom and have raised their virtual hand to be called upon. And then those of you who have signed in, I'll call on you next. And if you haven't signed in again, that's okay. Just feel free to queue up at the podium after the last individual who signed in has been called. So Madam Clerk, we have 2 hands raised. The first is Christina Minetti.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
There are 2 comments, one from me personally and one from the nonprofit. The first is from Christina Minetti, Gary Oak Coalition. The Gary Oak Coalition's members are concerned about the impact that the multifamily tax exemption will have on trees, including large Gary Oaks, in the neighborhood along Gravely Lake Drive. We are also disturbed by the city's messaging, whose point seems to be to reassure citizens that the trees are in no danger. The city has protested that the multifamily tax exemption does not endanger Lakewood's trees and has attacked Mr. Walter Neary for making such a suggestion. In January, the city posted this on Facebook in response to Mr. Neary's post about the multifamily tax exemption. The image used on this post is misleading, and we hope Mr. Neary was only doing this to try for the shock and awe value to gain people's attention. We have tree protections in our code to protect significant trees and require homeowners and business owners to apply for a permit for tree removal. The city council set a goal to increase overall tree canopy across the city. For developments, we have requirements and policies around tree removal and vegetation and mitigation for the impact the project could have. The city does require a permit and does issue those permits. Mitigation sequencing, however, seems to go directly to the last step, the acceptance of adverse environmental impacts in the form of fees, which are not true mitigation, rather than the first step, which is avoidance of impacts. There can be no mitigation for these large oaks and other trees for a variety of reasons, yet the city sometimes collects mitigation fees, though often no true mitigation is even attempted. And there appears to be no plan. Let's be honest. For all the talk of tree protection, real tree protections in Lakewood do not exist because Lakewood has not made tree preservation a priority and basically allows developers to do whatever they want. At CVS a few years ago, on the site, they allowed a large Gary oak to be cut down for a drive-through. At the time, of course, the city will protest that was the old code, but the new one is not much better. A city employee told me at the time, "You don't expect a developer to build around a tree, do you?" Well, yes, I do. We all should. Other places plan around trees. Lakewood should too. Otherwise, at this rate, it will soon have to be known just as the City of Impaired Lakes. And now for the second comment. Christina Minetti, Lakewood. Lügenpresse, the lying press, the press of lies. It sounds kind of sinister, doesn't it? This is the word the Nazis used to use to discredit the media and, of course, undermine the public's trust in it. I never thought I'd hear that kind of epithet being thrown around in America, but now we hear things being called fake news all the time. Disturbingly, Lakewood's mayor, too, has made disparaging remarks about journalists and journalism as a profession, implying that they were something bad or even sinister. Maybe he got the idea when he was stationed in Germany. Let's take as an example his comments in January of this year that were directed on Facebook to Mr. Walter Neary, a former council member and former journalist, who holds a master's from the prestigious Columbia School of Journalism, considered one of the very best in the entire country. Mr. Whalen was attacking Mr. Neary for alerting residents to the clear threat of the proposed expansion of the tax incentive on Gravelly Lake Drive, the threat that it poses to businesses, trees, and people who live there. What did Mr. Whalen say? Walter Neary, time to call you out. Instead of looking for a journalist headline, why not let the facts speak for themselves? And then, is this a tool designed to displace small businesses in lieu of multifamily housing? No. Your depiction is simply devoid of fact or example. Stop spreading disinformation. And then at the city council meeting of April 7th, Mayor Whalen said, Ms. Grimley sent to us some articles in the media, one of which you may have seen in the Suburban Times. And then I get concerned when I see comments in writing such as this: a city proposal to give developers a tax break to replace small businesses, tree groves, and the abandoned library site with box apartments should get everyone's attention. And then I think that overstating with hyperbole is what should get everyone's attention rather than calling it something that it's not. I really think that does a disservice to the public and its legitimate conversation about the policy objective. It is a fact, however, Lakewood, if it decides to give it tax incentives, is supporting developers, especially those planning to put apartments there already, and not small businesses and not trees, which will undoubtedly be cut down with or without permits. Mr. Neary is not misrepresenting the truth. He is contributing to legitimate discussion, and his writing is a service to the people of this city. I would like to ask that the city and its mayor stop trying to discredit Mr. Neary, journalists and journalism, a foundation, after all, of our democracy. This kind of thing just leaves a bad taste in the mouths of decent citizens. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Dennis Haugen.
Hey, can you hear me? Dennis Haugen, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Well, hats off to the federal government. We know there's millions of illegal immigrants with all kinds of history of crimes against citizens, including sex crimes and whatnot. And hats off to Sheriff of Adams County, who's being sued by the state for cooperating with the federal government in finding illegal immigrants, specifically and most importantly, who have committed crimes. Now that's, to me, sounds a little like our Attorney General is trying to intimidate local law enforcement to not cooperate with federal law. And I think I've read the oaths of office of almost everybody over the years. And it requires you to respect the federal laws and the state laws. But I think law and order people are going to win this one, because the federal government is very well coordinated, and they're getting some really large numbers of people to send out of the country, you know, and they're into the thousands already, and people are standing at the wall, and from the videos that I see, they aren't standing at the wall in Texas trying to wait for some illegal person to help them find a place to get across the border. But, it's sort of interesting that, you started your thing here with speech about sexual harassment and whatnot. Well, does it mean that illegal immigrants can harass and commit crimes and, well, only regular citizens are punished for that crime? There's a crime against harassing people, and it seems to me it should be an all-out effort and cooperation between local government and state government when it comes to getting illegal immigrants, and particularly those who've committed crimes, out of the country. Seems to me that that's the law. Just being a simple, ordinary person who don't understand the law, but you're welcome to take issue with what I'm saying. But we're doing a good job at the federal level. Thank you.
Next, Kim Underwood.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kim Underwood. I've a 40-year resident here in Lakewood. Throughout that period since incorporation, I've seen a lot of changes. Going forward, I'm concerned about the multi-planning tax exemption areas. For one, the area south of the library is primarily residential. I'm concerned about the compatibility effect of the what will the apartment complexes bring to that area. Right now we have, as you know, many small independent businesses. They have been sustainable over the years. As a matter of fact, I used to live next to Ted Betts, who owns or did own and passed through the family, those business buildings, and they still remain sustainable. So overall, I'm concerned about the compatibility effect, as well as the short-term effects of the tax incentive plan in itself. Why doesn't the city consider only having that exemption for the first year, and because many of the developers, including many of which are here in Lakewood, that own over 40% of Lakewood, why don't they? Most of the developers buy a building, throw up a cheap building, and move on. Many out of state. Why don't we only give them that incentive for first year, and think about areas maybe perhaps east of Bridgeport, or northeast it would be, rather than areas within an area that has many oak trees and that actually represent part of our heritage. As an executive member of the Chambers Clover Creek Watershed Council, I'm also concerned about water. Right now, the Lakewood Water District supplies water to 13 municipalities upstream. Our lakes, our creeks, everything are very, very dry. I'm sure everybody's complaining about it. I'm sure you know about it. And so how are we going to supply water to all of this low-income housing? Drilling to 500 feet is not the answer. And then the marine housing facility on Pacific Highway South is not full, is 10 people in there. I question the overall sustainability of this plan.
Madam Clerk, that appears to be the last hand raised for virtual public comment. Do you see any others that I may be missing?
Mayor, there are no other virtual hands raised at this time.
Very well, we'll go to those who have signed in on the sign-in sheet. And the first individual is Mr. Walter Neary.
Guess I don't have to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Walter Neary, 6338 School Street, Southwest. Well, I know why you're here tonight. Let me just say to the people in the room, I appreciate you being here, many of you here to show support for the neighborhood. The way this turned out was that for a long time, the city predicted there would be a hearing tonight about the multifamily tax exemption. And I don't want them to be penalized for trying to predict that. It was nice they did that. The Planning Commission took a while to make their recommendation, and it was well worth the wait. But we decided that rather than try to tear down a bunch of yard signs and put it back up again, we would still show up and give people the opportunity to speak. And it also gives us the opportunity, because this is public comment, to talk about something other than the multifamily tax exemption. So speaking of all of you here, I'd like to ask you if you came here because you're concerned about growth in the neighborhood or concerned about growth in Lakewood, could you please stand up or raise your hand? Because you could be here for something else that Daffodil Princess for. Okay,
Fine.
so great.
Yeah.
So thank you all for showing.
That's
So many of these people are concerned about the tax exemption and they'll speak for themselves, but many are also concerned about the overall plan for Lakewood. I'm sorry to ask again, I'm not going to try to give you a workout. How many of you were involved in the decision to zone Gravelly Lake Drive for apartments?
Mr. Neary, direct the comments to us during public comment, please.
Very good, Mayor.
It's lovely to have them all here and we appreciate that, but.
Mayor, I'm also wondering if anyone in the audience was involved in the 2018 creation of the downtown area subplan. So here's the deal, and I'll be brief about it. Members of the council, I think we've come to the central issue for what we have previously been calling the multifamily tax exemption debate. If you listen to the latest Planning Commission meeting, the chair of the Planning Commission described the situation probably better than I can, certainly less ornery way. But the underlying issues of what's going on here transcend or are bigger than the multifamily tax exemption. There is a very clear disconnect between what's being planned within these walls and what people outside these walls are thinking and what they want. If that continues, it's not healthy. That disconnect is only going to lead to more mistrust, and it's going to lead to frustration. And as leaders who are well-intentioned, and I know you are, I'm hoping you'll help to bring us all together. So yes, the people in this room do ask you to reject the tax exemption for the neighborhood for reasons previously stated and will come up. But more importantly, we ask that you show us that you're truly listening to residents, small business owners, voters, your neighbors, us basically. We're here and we're ready to talk. You've got our attention. The question is, what are you going to do with it? I hope you listen. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to read some names on the sheet who've signed in but indicated they don't wish to speak. I'm just going to double check to make sure we don't miss anyone. So Dennis Dirth, John or Karen Burns. Okay. Wendy Nelson. Michelle Nickerson. Okay. If you'd like to, yes, please. Well, you don't have to. Yeah. You're just down, and I want to make sure I don't miss anyone who signed in. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Michelle Nickerson. I live here in Lakewood, and my husband and I thought long and hard before we bought our home in this beautiful established neighborhood over here. And we love it. We love its proximity to things that are easy to get to, but we mostly love that it's a beautiful, quiet, established neighborhood. So to hear that you guys are taking into consideration building a bunch of apartments along what is already a busy road. There are times of the day I won't even go for a walk with my dogs. The neighborhood that we live in is beautiful. And yes, there are lovely big trees that we all love, but there's also no sidewalks. So thinking about the possibility of lots more housing, lots more cars is very concerning to me. I also go to the yoga studio. I go to the chiropractor. I go to these these businesses that are right here that I appreciate having so very close to home. So I'm very much opposed to there being a bunch of apartments in our beautiful established neighborhood that we love with the trees and the quietness. And yes, it can get busy on Gravely Lake Drive, but the thought of there being that many more cars and people is not appealing at all. So that's my concern. That's why I showed up here. So thank you for
you.
listening.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, Greg Utkin. Greg, there's Greg. And then followed by Cindy Neary.
Good evening. I'm Greg Utkin. I've lived in Lakewood since 1950, but who's counting? I've watched Lakewood grow. I've been involved in a lot of things in the Lakewood area, and I am concerned about apartments, especially in our neighborhood, in the Meadow Road, Wild Air, Brook Lane, on into Edgewater. It's a magnificent area. People who move into our area say it's really a jewel. It's one of those areas that is so close, yet so far away. We're hidden in the area. We don't have a lot of traffic. And so I would hope that in the planning that we don't put a lot of apartments in that create more traffic. If you put a 45 unit apartment complex in, you have around 2 cars per unit. That brings a lot of traffic in any neighborhood. So those are the things that I'm very much against, and I think I have a lot of support in those things. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Cindy Neary was next on the list.
Hello, my name is Cindy Neary. I'm a resident of Lakewood. I live on School Street, and I've owned a home there for about 28 years. I've lived in Lakewood for over 30. I came tonight because I wanted my voice to be heard. I understand that the city has made some zoning decisions in response to pressure from the state to allow for more development and more entry-level homes, apartment homes, condo homes, multifamily housing. I understand that you're in a pickle. But I think it's pretty clear that the residents of the neighborhood that I'm in don't want apartments close to where we live. And I have to say that within the last couple of months, I drove up to Bothell on business, and I saw what happens when you have multifamily housing and apartment buildings mixed into a residential single-family home neighborhood. It was ugly. It was crowded. There was no parking. And it wasn't a pleasant place to live anymore. Lakewood originally started as a recreational community. People had cabins here to get away from the city. And I think a lot of us who live here really appreciate how beautiful the places where we live are, and we want to keep it that way. There are other places in Lakewood that are more appropriate for apartment buildings and multifamily housing than our neighborhood. And I would like to invite the council to consider those other places. Thank you.
Next on the list, Wayne Davis. Okay, thank you. Jennifer Imholt did provide written comment, but feel free.
Jennifer Imholt, Lakewood. I've lived here my entire life, which is over 4 decades if you're doing math. So I'd like to take a moment to comment in regard to the proposed MFTE and RTA expansion along Gravy Lake Drive, which a majority of the Planning Commission voted against. I stand in full support of their decision and urge the council to also oppose this expansion. This area, specifically south of Alpharetta Street, represents one of Lakewood's most established tree-lined and serene neighborhoods. Its charm, character, and environmental value make it a unique asset to our city. Development here is not only unnecessary, but also counterproductive. Development incentives should be reserved for areas of our city that need revitalization and strategic growth, such as South Tacoma Way, Bridgeport Way, and north of 100th on Gravy Lake Drive, where thoughtful investment could truly elevate the surrounding community. Lakewood's own comprehensive plan states, the community's housing needs must be balanced and with maintaining the established quality of certain neighborhoods. This proposal runs contrary to that vision. Incentivizing development in stable, desirable neighborhoods like this one risks degrading what makes them special, displacing longtime residents, hardworking small business owners, disrupting tremendous wildlife corridors, and eroding the quiet character that the residents value. Moreover, public funds used to incentivize unnecessary development in already thriving areas could be far better spent elsewhere. These dollars could be redirected to support initiatives that generally benefit the broader community, such as increased public safety, infrastructure improvements, environmental restoration, and citywide beautification. Let's invest in strengthening the areas that need it, not altering the ones that already contribute to the city's appeal. Let's pursue the right kind of growth, targeted thoughtfully and in line with Lakewood's long-term vision, not growth for growth's sakes. These decisions will shape the future of Lakewood for decades to come. I really sincerely appreciate your time, attention, and commitment to listening to residents' voices as we work together to protect and improve our communities. Thank you.
Next, Zach Kinnaman.
Good evening. My name is Zachary Kinnaman. I've been a proud resident of City of Lakewood since 1998. My wife's family is a very well-established family. My father-in-law owned Architectural Woods in Tacoma, but built his dream house off of John Dower Road on 77th Street West, where we currently live. My wife and I bought the house out of the estate. We're longtime fans of this city. And I'm also from New York. When I grew up in New York, there was a town and became famous in planning decisions, the town of Ramapo, where my father and my mother and I and my 2 brothers lived. And we watched this battle play out once before. Development versus stabilization, green space, keeping things the same. I'm actually on the side of keeping things the same because I've seen what's happened to the town of Ramapo in the last 50 years, going back to visit on a regular basis. It's a nightmare in terms of traffic. It's a nightmare in terms of cost. No one can afford to live there that lived there 50 years ago. I'm approaching a point where I'm going to stop doing what I do with the state of Washington. And I'm not here as a representative of them in any form or shape. But at some point, I'm going to try to sell our house, which really breaks my heart. I can barely afford the property taxes. We are seeing increased costs across the boards for just about everything under the sun. And we're talking about giving people who do development as a living, they understand the risks. I was an attorney and I worked in the construction and development end of things for over 10 years. I know the facts about bankruptcy, success, and recessions. And I'm really concerned about the future for the city of Lakewood. If we bank on someone banking on 10 years of tax breaks, and I'm going to sell that puppy for $27 million, I only paid $5 for it. Lucky me, don't bet on it. It doesn't always work that way. We were through a great recession, many recessions in the last 50 years, and the signs aren't good. And we need to carefully consider what we're doing, not only from the environmental standpoint, because you can't replace the oak trees. You can't replace the beauty of the city of Lakewood. It's becoming a hotspot. People, I live 5 minutes from a transit station. I could literally drive a bicycle, a commute in the morning to Seattle. And that's where the market's going. And my concern in Lakewood is we're not paying attention to our homes and our businesses and having jobs that pay a living wage right here in the city of Lakewood. Consider these things as you go forward, and let's have more discussions. As the first person who spoke, he's right. We need to talk further. Thank you.
Next, James Dunlop.
My name is James Dunlop, and I am a Lakewood resident. I want to talk about affordable housing, homelessness, and morality. Starting with the Tiny Homes Village in Spanaway. Its backers chose a location that was of major environmental importance. Pierce County, by allowing this development to go ahead, was desecrating the region's natural heritage, and the environmental cost far outweighs any ephemeral human benefits. Lakewood, by supporting this development, is culpable, and virtue signaling about the plight of the homeless isn't going to change that. As for affordable housing, I'm in favor of it, but I'm not in favor of letting developers do whatever they want. And the city, helped by the city council, needs to represent its residents rather than gaslight them. Indeed, the City Council is supposed to protect Lakewood's residents, and that includes protection from the overreach and undue influence of both municipal and private sources. And yet, the council either facilitates the city's degradation or pleads helplessness. For example, the council could almost certainly have stopped the destruction of the Tensler Library by voting to de-annex. I'm fairly sure that the Pierce County Library System would have been so anxious not to lose Lakewood and its tax dollars that they would have done the necessary repairs. But it didn't help that some of the council members were past or present municipal employees, so it wasn't their custom to stand up to their own or other municipalities. I'm also concerned, as we approach the 5th anniversary of Saeed Wakim's death, that the 4 members of the City Council who were sitting when a jury awarded 7-figure settlements against 3 Lakewood police officers following the 2013 shooting of Leonard Thomas haven't resigned. Those officers should not have continued to serve in Lakewood's police force. And we now have a situation where the killing of Saeed Wakim on May the 1st, 2020 by one of those officers has led to Lakewood or its insurers paying out $8 million to Saeed's family. Where is the outrage? Evil isn't just about doing bad things. It's about allowing bad things to happen, whether through fear, greed, laziness, or a lack of understanding. As Upton Sinclair said, it is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it.
That's the last individual who signed up on the sign-in sheet to speak. But again, if you haven't signed in, that's okay. If you want to approach the dais and give us your name and residence of record, you'll have your 3 minutes.
Hello. I usually come more prepared for these, so I promise I will in the future, but I came straight from work. My name's Christina Kloss. I live right over here in this neighborhood, and have lived in Lakewood or Lakewood adjacent for 40 years. I have been trying to decide what I wanted to say because I've had a lot of points and I spoke at a lot of planning commission meetings. So I think I want to mention a couple of things that people haven't said yet. I work in one of the schools that a lot of the new apartments are going to feed. And I know that statistics would say that over 1/3 of all apartment dwellers have children under 18 years old. which means likely a lot of those are going to go to our schools. And I know that I have been working at the same school for 20 years. And I know that our school doesn't have any capital projects on the books for the next 15 years. So I'm struggling to see where we're going to put the children. We are determined to grow, but I don't know that we have put all of the dots together to grow effectively. I'm not opposed to development. I just think it needs to be planned out wisely. And then the second thing is that in one of the planning commission meetings, we heard our city's head of economic development say from this podium, there really is no good way to attract businesses to come to Lakewood, end quote. And I am a small business owner, and I struggle with that statement because that means that the city of Lakewood is turning to apartment complexes to fill our revenue or to fill our shopping, to bring customers into the stores that we have. And that is what will attract more businesses to come here because there are more shoppers in our neighborhood. A living, thriving, walking, shoppable business downtown area has been the goal of the city. And I don't disagree with that. But if we push forward expanding the RTA and allowing multifamily tax exempt buildings to come in there, there's no foresight to putting in mixed use buildings. We're only putting in apartments. We're incentivizing apartments. I know that Gravelly Lake Drive is already zoned for apartments. Landowners can already put apartments there. That's not the problem. The problem is that we're going, hey, here's an incentive to do so. And I think that's wrong. Mostly because we all agree that we want a thriving, walkable business district. But what we're incentivizing is not business. We're incentivizing apartments. And then you can't reverse engineer those when we realize, oh, shoot, we don't have anywhere to put the businesses. So if there's a way for the city to force mixed use in the commercial zone and not incentivize apartments, because we can't put businesses in once we have built the apartments there. We have to think in advance. And so I would caution to wait and see how we are already going to develop.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jo Neary. Oh, look at that. I've never spoken in anything like this before, but rest assured, I am the last member of the Neary family who's here. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I thought it might be useful or helpful to give perspective of someone who actually doesn't live in the neighborhood that's affected by the multi-housing. One thing I can say, I bought my home in Lakewood 13 years ago. It's a starter home. We were lucky enough to get in on the dip. We're going to have it paid off pretty quickly here, and we're looking at buying a new forever home in, probably less than 5 years. I don't live in the neighborhood that's being affected by this, but as I think about buying my next home, my forever home, I do have to look at the city and the city's intentions to determine if I want to stay here, and also specifically the city's reaction to public comment and how that works, how the process works, the planning committee's decision, all of this that I'm seeing for, again, the first time. And I have to say, I know I bought a starter home. I'm not sure if I'm also in a starter town. And I don't think I'm the only person who is probably in a similar position, whether they're actively at this meeting or not. So that's all.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vicki Stanich, and I live here in Lakewood. And I just wanted to mention that tomorrow we have a Fort Steilacoom Park Neighborhood Association meeting at 6:30. And if anyone is interested in coming, there are different association meetings, but if you're interested in coming to our association meeting, you're welcome. We will have an emergency preparedness presentation, a neighborhood police report, fire and rescue updates, and a community open forum. And maybe we'll have somebody from the city, a representative from the city, come and visit us as well. And it's a good place to, mention your thoughts and your comments and maybe suggestions about how we can build Lakewood into a better planned city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Bonifant, and I've lived in Lakewood since I was 11 years old. 1967 is when I arrived. The city has grown, and it really hasn't grown. It really hasn't changed too much as far as the quantity of people that actually live in the city. But what I have seen is a lot of crime. It's very scary to walk around on the streets. Gravely Lake Drive is so noisy with crazy cars driving up and down with loud noises. It's not pleasant. And to put more traffic on Gravely Lake Drive would really be a sad situation, and more people. The houses and housing area that is being talked about most this evening is from 111th down to Park Lodge, I guess, and in towards the lake. And those are some of those are estate settings. That's how they were zoned when people bought them. And to bump up multifamily living against that is just going to increase the crime. And we don't really want to see houses being burglarized and robbed and people breaking in and doing sexual acts to people and hurting them. And that's what happens when you bring in a lot more lower income housing. And that's what you guys have been talking about, is having it low and lower income housing for these people. There are other areas in Lakewood that would be more appropriate and more wide open. The other thing is that we have wildlife. We have eagles, we have owls, and we have deer that walk through that area. And we certainly don't need to jeopardize their opportunity to walk through that area in the neighborhood. We enjoy that, and I just think it's a sad situation that this is even being contemplated. I think there's better opportunities. And as an architect, I feel that we are being disserviced from the council, who has helped make this decision based on some directive from Jay Inslee saying that we need to get denser. So I would hope that you guys reconsider the locations of this neighborhood. I look at Tensler Library, the Lakewood Library that's moved. That's supposed to be a temporary location. They've got that for 20 years. So why is that temporary? I don't understand that. They don't know what they're going to do with their property, but it sounds like somebody's going to try to buy it, I guess, and put multi-housing on it. That would be a shame. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Karen Burns, and I moved to Lakewood in 2022 after opening my business on Gravely Lake Drive. I own a quilt shop in the Clover Park Shops. We picked Lakewood because of the demographics here, the homes here, the people here. And I picked Clover Park Shops because of the atmosphere. It's a small complex with established businesses. One of the businesses there is Mimi's Barbershop. She's been there 20 years. Some of the office people upstairs have been there for 20 years. And I love the atmosphere. It doesn't feel like a strip mall. It doesn't feel like some of the complexes that we have around here, because it's an old building and run by a really phenomenal company here in Lakewood that have been here a long time. My concern about apartment buildings and new complexes on Gravely Lake, and other people have expressed this as well, as the traffic. Summer days, I'd love to be able to open my door and let the nice, cool air in the shop, but it is so loud because of the cars driving by that other people have mentioned, the loud cars that a lot of the kids like to drive. You add apartments on that street, it's just going to get worse. There is just not an avenue there for more cars to go through that street. It will be too busy. The high school across the street, with the kids running back and forth across the street to the coffee shop that's in my parking lot. It's a concern to have more traffic on that street. I do understand the need for housing. I completely get it. It's expensive to live in this area, and I know you need more housing, lower income housing. I just think that there's got to be better places than along Gravely Lake Drive to put them. I live a couple of blocks from here. I bought my home within a mile of my shop so that I wouldn't have to drive very far. I could walk to work if I want to. But you add more traffic on Gravelly Lake, it's just gonna make it worse for all the neighborhoods around here, for the high school around here. And it's just, in my opinion, it's a bad idea, just all around a bad idea. And I know you can find a better place to put it. I have confidence that you can do it somewhere else. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ben Clark. I'm a Lakewood resident. I have not participated in anything like this in the 10 years I've been a Lakewood resident. My wife was born here. I was in the military at Fort Lewis, left, and we chose to come back to Lakewood to settle here 10 years ago because we like Lakewood. We love Lakewood, and we think it's a meaningful place to raise our daughter and to stay, to retire and remain. So I'm an inch deep into this issue, but what I've seen so far concerns me greatly. And I thought I'd speak up as a citizen because I believe citizens' involvement in Lakewood is part of the puzzle here that seems to have been potentially neglected. I don't know yet. I've got to do a lot more study. But my initial assessment is that we are talking about incentivizing apartments and apartment development over the desires and concerns of Lakewood residents. And to me, that's deeply disappointing. I've got a lot of study yet to do and probably 10 years of inactivity of not being engaged with the council and the city of Lakewood. Shame on me. But if we inappropriately and prematurely bring in a big incentivized package for development of apartments on Gravelly Lake Drive, I'd be crushed. I'd be deeply disappointed. Like I said, I live on Gravelly Lake. I know the challenges we have. I too have been down to Mimi's Barbershop and walked to the Key Antiques when they used to be there. It's a walkable, wonderful small business district. And I can't imagine that we would let that go or push that away in favor of apartments. Thank you.
Good evening, council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Steve Hibbs. I live on Wildair. A couple of small, low-hanging fruit items for you. I don't expect you to do anything about either of these other than contact the people who can do something about them. I drive Gravelly Lake Drive almost every day as I turn left off of Wildair and head north. And the number of times I get stopped at red lights for cross traffic or oncoming cars that are supposedly turning left but don't exist. So I sit there idling. I'm the only one waiting, or cars behind me. It will cycle completely without any cross traffic. So maybe as we anticipate more density in this area, we could sync up our traffic lights, install smarter traffic lights that don't give green lights to non-existent cars. We show concern for carbon footprint and pollution. So let's start with something simple and keep the traffic moving along Gravelly so that we're not sitting idling, going nowhere. The other is there was a devastating fire at Fort Steilacoom Park almost 2 summers ago now. It'll be 2 years in August. Part of the remediation after that fire was replacing telephone poles or power poles that run through the southern valley at that park. And I don't know if any of you realize it, but some of the poles that were removed are still sitting on the ground at the park 2 years later, almost 2 years later. And I don't know if you know the chemical composition of what goes into treating telephone poles, but it contains things like copper, chrome, arsenic, pentachlorophenol, PAHs. I could go on. Most of those are carcinogens, and if they sound nasty, it's because they are. So lastly, I hear a lot of love for Lakewood in this room, and that thrills me to death. This Saturday is Parks Appreciation Day, 9 till noon. And if you really love Lakewood, I expect you to don a pair of gloves and a bottle of water. Pick a park. It doesn't have to be Fort Steilacoom. It could be Edgewater. It could be anywhere in the city of Lakewood. We have lots of parks and we're proud of them. But show up and work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers? Public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Cinda Cleveland. I've lived here since 1991, before we even became a city of Lakewood. And I just want to say that I think that when you come off of Gravelly Lake into Lakewood, that's one of the most beautiful entrances into Lakewood compared to 512, compared to Bridgeport Way. Why you would want to have that turn into apartment buildings is just beyond me. I don't know why you would want to devastate that, because, you know, the entrance is just the quaintest entrance that there is. I don't understand when there's so many empty lots everywhere else that you would ever want to change that. I look at you people and I'm wondering, are you really listening to us when we come to you? Because I see people shake their heads, look down, scoff. I mean, really, are you listening to the people of Lakewood? Because when I moved here, it was the quaintest place that I've ever been. I would tell people, I love Lakewood. You'd have to chain me up and drag me from this place. Because it's so beautiful. It's so quaint. I've watched businesses come. I've watched businesses go. You say, well, we want new businesses. We have no businesses. Yet you want to tear businesses down and put in apartments. Where are our businesses? We don't have businesses. Look at, we lost the mall. We lost the strip mall that was in front of the mall. All of the businesses that were over by Target, all of the business, Kmart is gone. We've got over by where the post office is. Now we've lost Big Lots. Our businesses are leaving us. We have no Fred Meyers. We've got Lowe's now. I don't understand what is the concept that you guys are pushing towards for us? Because I have to leave town. I mean, we've got grocery stores. I have to go to the Tacoma Mall to do any kind of actual clothing shopping or anything like that, unless I want to go online. We really don't have any shopping here. So why would you want to shut down these little shops that people liked? I mean, I own a business. I am a small business owner in Lakewood. I've owned my home since 1997. I don't understand what is the concept that you people are trying to push here. I mean, we've got apartment buildings popping up here. We've got apartment buildings popping up right over here.
Thank you.
I don't get it. And I'm wondering, are you guys really listening to us? Honestly,
Yes, we are.
I
Thank
would
you.
certainly hope so.
Any others like to address council? Any others? So I'm going to declare the public comment period closed, but don't leave yet because I want to share some comments because I appreciate you being here. So first of all, I just want to share with you, those of you who have come on this issue, we appreciate the comment. We really do. And we are listening. I would hope at the next town hall that's put on by one of your state representatives, whether Mari Levitt or Mr. Bernatsky or your senator from the 28th district, Tawana Nobles, that you would attend and lend your voice to our state delegation on these very same issues, because the issue of density that all of us are concerned about, we're concerned too, because we all live in Lakewood. We own homes in Lakewood. I own a small business here in Lakewood. I've represented a lot of you as a lawyer with people who have small businesses here in Lakewood, and we do care. The issue of density is a challenge, and it is a function of state law changes that have been made over the last several years. That cities like Lakewood, Puyallup, University Place, DuPont, Steilacoom, we're all grappling with because we are losing some local control as a result of legislation that's being made at the state level. Here's an example. Lakewood's about 67,000 people in population roughly. We are directed by state law. Growth Management Act is kind of the umbrella. Puget Sound Regional Council provides direction to the local cities and towns and core cities like Lakewood as a result. And we have been required to plan for growth, population targets, housing targets, and employment targets. So what does that mean? Lakewood has been told to plan for what is about 83,000 in population, so almost a 20,000 increase by 2040 roughly. So what do? You have to plan for growth. Does that mean it's going to happen? Not necessarily, but we have to plan for growth, for population increases that we just mentioned, housing targets, and employment targets. As many speakers acknowledged, multifamily is already zoned as a matter of law, a code in certain areas in Lakewood, including the Central Business District. One of the planning efforts that the council took back in 2016 or 17, ended in 2018, was a sub-area planning process in an effort to get a handle on the growth targets that we were told we had to plan for. Those two sub-area plans included the Central Business District that has a defined boundary. You've probably seen all the maps. And the Lakewood Station District over by the train station in that northeast part of Lakewood. Those two areas were planned with lots of public input. People were listening. There was lots of engagement back then. And those two sub-area plans allowed for transportation studies to deal with the issues and impacts of transportation as well as available lands. Those two sub-areas are planned to accommodate about 4,000 units of residential housing. Why do we plan for growth in the Central Business District and the Lakewood Station District? Because exactly why so many of you have commented about the character and quality of our neighborhoods. We don't want to see density in the residential neighborhoods. But do you know that the legislature has passed laws that will allow multiple units on a single family lot down on School Street, down on 112th, in my neighborhood, in your neighborhood? You can now have multiple single family units and an ADU on one residential lot because of the legislature, not because of the seven of us. And now they're talking about taking away local control for us to deal with parking, because those of us who drive the streets realize that these residential streets are small, and they're small by design because this is a place that, you know, was incorporated in 1996, and it was the unincorporated county well prior to that, and it kind of grew in a haphazard way. Many of the streets are narrow. We don't want density to allow parking on residential streets. If there's going to be density, the parking should be accommodated on that lot. Those notions of local control are also being eroded by the state legislature because they are so myopically focused on housing density. And folks like us in core cities like Lakewood, we are doing the best we can to listen to you and to you and to you, and to not have haphazard growth impacting our residential neighborhoods. We're really trying to focus density where it makes sense. Now, you're all here for a good reason, and that is the multifamily tax credit. Where should we have that applied? That is a policy decision that we appreciate receiving the input, because there is a reasonable and legitimate debate where you want to incentivize that kind of density. This is a fantastic debate and a good policy argument. The Planning Commission, there are two members here tonight. They heard you and they made their recommendations by vote at the last meeting. What I personally bristle at is the notion that was floating around out there that somehow we want to displace small businesses in lieu of a multifamily housing approach with the tax credit exemption. If that ultimately was the impact down the road, because the folks at the Clover Park shops, the landlord decided for whatever reason down the road that that was what he wanted to do as a matter of his business, that could happen. Is that what we are trying to incentivize? No. I go to Studio Fitness. I go to those shops. I patronize those businesses, as do many of you. Do we want to see small businesses displaced? No. I get that the end result down the road that could happen if a landlord felt so inclined that they were going to jump and, gee, there's this tax credit. I think I'll make a better deal if I sell to a developer who wants to build. Could that happen? Maybe. Is that the intent? No. But I appreciate your comments tonight. We all do. But please know that the issue of density is an issue that all cities like Lakewood are grappling with, and we are struggling with the demands, the legal demands, the laws that are being passed by the state legislature, and we are doing the best we can to create balance, to be as least disruptive to your lives as possible. So there's no one on this council that's saying that the city wants to shut down small businesses. As much as some commenters want to mock me about calling that into question, that's fine. I get it. I have a target. That's all right. But I can tell you we're here to try to be as helpful and to listen as best we can when we're grappling with the issues that are complicated, to say the least. Your voices matter, and I really appreciate hearing from you tonight. We all do, but I think that the state legislators that represent all of us could really stand to hear you too. And I hope you get a chance to do that, because there are many things that we can do as a council, but one of them is we have to comply with state law, and we're doing the best we can to balance that requirement with your voice. So thank you for hearing me out. We appreciate you coming. We'll now turn to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
A, approval of the minutes of the city council meeting of April 7th, 2025. B, approval of the minutes of the city council study session of April 14th, 2025. C, motion number 2025-19, authorizing the execution of an agreement with Aqua Techniques for the 2025 American Lake.
And Brianna, you got to speak into the mic a little bit better there. There you go.
The American Lake Management District milfoil treatment. Items filed in the office of the city clerk. 1, Public Safety Advisory Committee meeting minutes of December 4th, 2024. 2, Lakewood's Promise Advisory Board meeting minutes of December 5th, 2024. 3, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting minutes of January 28th, 2025. 4, Lakewood's Promise Advisory Board meeting minutes of February 6th, 2025. 5, Planning Commission meeting minutes of March 5th, 2025. And 6, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting minutes of March 8th, 2025.
Thank you very much. Is there any item which any member of council wishes to remove from consent agenda consideration at this time? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
A second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Laura Sella, seconded by Deputy Mayor Moss, that we adopt the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda has been adopted. We now turn to the regular agenda. Madam Clerk.
Public hearings and appeals. This is the date set for a public hearing on the 5-year 2025 through 2029 consolidated plan and fiscal year 2025 annual action plan.
Thank you. And for this, I'll call on our planning manager, Mr. Gum.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. Tonight is the public hearing for the 2025 through 2029 consolidated plan, which includes the 2025 annual action plan. The plans establish a funding framework and goals specifically for allocating CDBG and home funds. Those funds are planning over the next 5 years. The fiscal year 2025 plan that's included in the 5-year plan proposes to allocate 2025 home funds in the amount of $325,000 for the Affordable Housing Fund. It proposes to allocate $104,995 in home funds for tenant-based rental assistance. There's a proposed $25,000 allocation of home funds for administration, which is a function of the Tacoma Home Consortium admin funds paid directly to Tacoma. As part of the 2025 plan, CDBG funds are proposed to be allocated in the amount of $496,093.45 for major housing repair program. $35,000 in CDBG funds is proposed to be allocated to the Housing Emergency Assistance for Displaced Residents Program. $45,000 in CDBG funds is proposed to be allocated to CDBG Emergency Payments Program. $15,000 is proposed in CDBG funds to be allocated for administration of home housing services. $105,000 in CDBG funds is proposed to be administrative funds. And finally, $292,000 in NSP1 funds are proposed to be allocated towards the NSP1 abatement program. The public hearing is part of the formal process for allocating the 5-year plan. After the 5-year plan, it's proposed to come back to council at the May 5th session, and it's to be approved and submitted to HUD no later than May 15th. So with that, I turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gum. Any questions of Mr. Gum before we turn to the public hearing? Again, for the benefit of the public watching here and at home, this is a matter which we spent some attention and detail on during the study session. I know you have your Human Services Advisory Committee that does help providing public input and feedback to the plan and the use of the CDBG dollars. I thank them and you and your staff for your attention and detail on this. This is the date set for the public hearing on the 5-year 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan and the fiscal year 25 annual action plan. Public testimony again is accepted by mail, email, or live virtual or in-person comment. Comments may be submitted in advance by mail or email to our city clerk, Ms. Brianna Schumacher, at 6000 Main Street Southwest in Lakewood, or B. Schumacher at cityoflakewood.us is her email. Testimony received up to an hour before the meeting has been provided to the council electronically, and I'll ask the clerk to read the names of those who have submitted written testimony in advance.
Mayor, the city received no written testimony in advance of this evening's meeting.
Thank you very much. Again, this is the date set for the public hearing on the 5-year consolidated plan and on the fiscal year 2025 annual action plan. If you would like to speak to this topic, providing your public testimony, please approach the dais, give your name and residence for the record. You'll have your 3 minutes to speak. I have one individual who appears to have signed in. I think the name is Wayne Dye. Unless I mispronounce the name. Any others wishing to provide public testimony on this public hearing for the 5-year 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan and the fiscal year 2025 annual action plan? Madam Clerk, do we have any on Zoom?
Dennis Haugen.
Mr. Haugen, you're up.
Hello, Dennis Hogan here from Sioux Falls, used to be a resident of Lakewood. The word plan, think about it for a minute. Who are you? Well, you're one of 13 states that I can count that somehow don't respect federal law. Now that creates a feeling with states who are complying with the law. And trying to figure out why this issue, I mean, we estimate there's millions of people in the country illegally. And it would seem logical that they're going to head for the states that are most amenable and accepting of illegality. And it also seems—
Mr. Mayor,
What?
as a point of order, this is a public hearing. It's not the public comment period.
Absolutely. Mr. Haugen, your comments are straying from the topic at hand. If you're providing testimony on the consolidated plan, that would be appropriate. Otherwise, we appreciate your appearance and we'll say see you later. I guess he's done. Next hand raised is Ms. Christina Minetti. Again, on the public hearing topic, which is the 5-year consolidated plan and the fiscal year 2025 annual action plan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so this is Christina Minetti. I just want to make a brief comment on this topic. I don't know very much about this topic, but I looked at the materials a little bit, and I saw that back in November, some comment was raised or suggestion was made that Lakewood needs tiny home villages like in Tacoma, was the phrase used. And I don't know what tiny home village they were thinking of in Tacoma, but this kind of made me a bit worried because I don't think that tiny home villages are a very optimal solution to housing problems. From various points of view, also environmental, they are not eco, as you probably can imagine. They're not a sustainable way of housing people. And so there were rumors some time ago, a couple of years ago, at least, I don't remember exactly when, that there was going to be a tiny home village on the Oakbrook Golf Course, former Oakbrook Golf
And
Course. I think that's what it's called.
I will remind you, as I did the prior speaker, that if you could keep your testimony to the actual subject matter, that would be great.
Yeah, I thought that I thought this was about using funds for solving housing problems, as I saw outlined in the agenda. So my comment is that I'm not sure what you're planning on doing according to the list of, the budget list. It doesn't specify exactly. It does talk about homelessness. So I thought that that would mean also considering the possibility of adding tiny home villages to Lakewood. And my comment is that if you are considering homelessness solutions, I would like you not to prioritize tiny home villages, especially not in natural areas. I think that was perfectly on topic, and thank you very much for your time. That's all.
Thank you. Now, the table 2 for the home funding recommendations, including an affordable housing fund to support diverse rental and homeowner opportunities, tenant-based rental assistance, and a certain amount for administration. But thank you. Any others?
There are no other virtual hands raised at this time.
Thank you. Any others in the audience as a final opportunity for public testimony? Seeing none, I'll declare the public comment period closed. We'll now turn to unfinished or new business. It appears that there are no items there other than further items for discussion, Mr. Caulfield.
Roger that, Mayor.
So the first is we have review of ordinance amending ordinance number 766 to extend the date within which the city's designated rep can finalize the terms of the city's limited tax general obligation bonds. And again, these are just items for discussion. No action will be taken. That's my understanding. Ms. Kraus, you're up.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. This amendment really is to extend the date by which the bonds could be issued. It doesn't change the date in which the bonds mature. So the bonds will still mature by December 31st, 2044, but we will be issuing the bonds in 25 and 26. And if you approve this ordinance at your next meeting, that will allow us to do that.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Kraus on that? Any positive changes with the current interest rates in the market on that, or is it going to be impacted whatsoever?
That right now, it's not as good, but we'll watch it when we issue the bonds. It's just,
Okay.
it's hard to predict, but we'll keep an eye.
Very good. And the next matter, also with our Deputy City Manager, Ms. Kraus, is review of an ordinance relating to the approval of projects to be funded with revenue generated by the City of Lakewood's Transportation Benefit District.
And
Ms.
this,
Kraus.
and this one here is really housekeeping in nature in terms of updating the ordinance to show which projects have been completed and which projects are still to be completed. And at the bottom of, or actually on page 89, you'll see that there's a list of projects that were currently listed as completed, and then we've just removed some projects to show them as being completed. So that's all it is, really. It doesn't change any projects that you've made decisions on in the past.
And none of these will be impacted by the updated bond.
No, it'll still allow us to issue the bonds and fund the projects that the city council had originally authorized.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Kraus? Next would be a review of the 2024 Transportation Benefit District Annual Report. Again, Ms. Kraus, looks like you're up for all of these, so you're next.
Yes, and this report here is just to show the city council and the public how much we received in transportation benefit district funds in 2024 and how we spent that money. And so there were a number of projects that received funding, not a whole lot to talk about. They, the funding went to provide for personnel engineering professional services, new LED streetlights, the neighborhood traffic calming, and the minor capital major maintenance. The one photo that we do have is the chip seal program local access roads to show you what the roads looked like before and what they looked like after.
And again, just briefly for the benefit of the listening public, the Transportation Benefit District is funded by the $20 annual car tab fee.
Yes, that is correct.
So it looks like obviously we've utilized those funds. They total roughly $835-ish
Yes.
thousand a year.
Yes, 835,000 is about the average that we've been receiving in revenue. We have seen a decline in revenue over the last couple of years.
Any questions of Ms. Kraus on the TBD? Mr. Boki, I see you looking interested mildly.
Just a quick question, because I'm sure you've done the math. Prior to this, we're talking about the bonding that we've approved already, but we just need to go through the process of selling the rest of the bonds as those projects come online. And then we have expenditures here, or excuse me, revenues that are basically flat or falling. Do we have enough revenue to go to 12 million?
Sure, I can address that.
Yeah.
So if you recall, last year or so, we had the Interlochen Bridge that needed to have some repairs. And so we delayed issuing the bonds. We used some of those bond proceeds to pay for that. However, we do have some various project savings. So we basically made up for using those dollars through various capital project savings. And so we don't have to issue as much in bonds. We'll also take into consideration of the declining revenue that the transportation benefit $20 vehicle license fees generate. So we will not get into a situation where we're exceeding or issuing bonds more than the fund can handle.
So on the bonds themselves, like the 3 million that we've already done.
Yeah.
Is there a secondary source of repayment already in there? They're general obligation bonds of the cities.
Yes, they're general obligation bonds of the city, so they can be supported by other funds. So Transportation Benefit District is the original source, but if it ever came to a situation, there is always the option of paying it with other sources, such as the property tax in the general fund. That's not what we're planning to do. You'll see that in the carry forward, we do have some project savings for transportation because we received some grants. I redirected that money to reduce the amount of bonds that we'll have to issue so that we can stay within about an $815,000 to be conservative on the revenue side.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Lauricella.
Thank you, Mayor Whalen. So revenue's been down for vehicle license fees. That implies we have less vehicles being licensed in the city, right?
Yes.
And you said that that's been a recurring thing over the past couple of years.
Yes.
Our population isn't declining, I don't think. So does that imply more people are using public transportation, or are they finding a way to make things work with one car instead of two? Do we have any of the why behind
I
it?
don't have any of the stats on whether they're using public transportation. My initial thought is they're not buying cars.
Thank you.
They're probably not buying very many Teslas these days either. Any other comments from Ms. Kraus or questions on that? Very good. Okay, we'll move to the next one. The review of the 2024 year-end financial report, which starts on page 97 of our packet.
So this is a very lengthy report. It's very detailed, but I'll just turn your attention to page 99 of the packet.
Okay.
And that really focuses on the general and street fund, which is the primary operating funds for the city. The other funds are dedicated sources such as, you know, your special revenue funds, which includes the TBD. They can only be used for certain things. And then there are some restricted funds such as the real estate excise tax and such. So I'm focusing mainly on the general fund. So the good news is on the general fund, you know, we are in the good. We've been able to meet expenditures as well as brought in the revenues. We've met our 12% contingency reserves, and we have monies to fund the carry forward budget adjustment request. So on the areas that we're seeing revenues below the year-to-date budget is a decrease in the property tax, which means we could pick up some delinquent taxes this year that may make up for that difference. We see a small decline on the sales and park sales tax. So same thing with the criminal justice sales tax as one sales tax revenue source. Declines or increases, the other two typically will follow. The big one is on the utility tax, and that has to do, I believe, is more attributable to the warmer weather that we've had. So less use on the electricity and gas. Gambling tax, we did decrease it some from what we've seen in 2022 and 23, but we're still down $59,000. So we'll keep an eye on that for the mid-biennium budget adjustment review. And then the other area that we're seeing a decrease is on the franchise fees of $106,000 compared to what we estimated. So those items that you're seeing in the decreases will be a consideration for the budget adjustment. On the positive side, we've seen that our sales and use tax is actually up. It's the other sales tax that are down. And then our missions tax is up by $57,000. Our development services fees in both public works and community economic development, so really the site development and what was formerly the permits, the building and the zoning are both up by about almost $800,000.
Ms. Kraus, how much of that would you guess or estimate is from the Western State Project?
Well, that you'll see in the first quarter we did receive. I want to just say that just right off the top of my head, it's been a while since I looked at the number, probably about $3 million at the time that I looked at it for 2025.
Okay, so that's not in these numbers.
It's not in these
Okay, great.
numbers.
That's something positive to look forward to.
Yes, something you'll look forward to, a big consideration for the mid-biennium on what to do with those dollars. Also on the police contracts, which includes extra duty, is up by $263,000. Fines and forfeitures for municipal court increased by $27,600, but also take into consideration that we reduced the estimate. And then camera enforcement is also up. So.
Mr. Boki.
Couple of questions. I mean, I'm on page 99, I guess. I think I'm on the same page as you. Might be a little bit too granular, but parks and rec fees up 24, almost 25%. And we've seen nice growth in that the last 2 years.
Are we on the same page?
Yeah, I'm on page 99 of our packet, but the page number is 99. Yeah, actually it is 99. On that big, the overall summary of the general and street OMM funds.
Right.
Do you know offhand why that big growth in park and rec fees?
So on the parks and rec fees, are you talking about the $13,000 below the budget and actual? Or?
Well, I'm actually talking to the actuals. So the actuals compared to last year were almost $56,000 higher than 23.
Okay, well,
I'm not worried about the budget, but I'm more worried in this case about, I'm not worried, I'm just wondering.
So can I address that? Page 176.
Okay.
Okay, So looking at and I'm just skimming through it, senior services revenues compared to 2023 is up slightly of about $4,000. Our parks facilities revenues went up from 298,000 to 346,000. And our Fort Steilacoom Park revenues also increased by quite a bit from 287,000 to 320,000. So it's in the two areas of parks facilities and Fort Steilacoom Park. Now, within those areas, I don't have that information with me. I have it in order to prepare this document, but I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head what those categories are.
I'm thinking some of that's the baseball fields,
It's very likely.
the new fields. And then I've got a follow-up question back to page 99, so you can explain it to us and to the general public. Towards the bottom of that, the all-important fund balance, right, in the general fund. But there's other financing sources, grants, contribution, one-time sources, transfers in, I assume those are from other funds. Then there's interfund transfers out and capital and other one-time items. So we ship some money to some other funds.
Yes, so on the interfund transfers, you do have some transfers that go to different projects, like on the capital projects, parks projects, some. And then for example, you have some monies going to the debt service payments for our general obligation bonds. So that's going to be a good portion of that as well. And then, that includes like transfers for one-time projects, like to the street funds. It also includes like your contribution for SSMCP, ELT membership of $75,000. That's just off the top of my head.
Okay. And then the all-important ending fund balance is a percentage of operating revenues and is 25.1%, which is well above our 12% goal.
However,
However,
we had some good years during the pandemic. We built a lot of ending fund balance reserves and we're drawing down on them to use them for one-time programs, which is, I guess what you could say is that we intended, so we had some good years. The city council authorized funding for various projects that, was in accordance with your council goals and objectives.
and it's allowing us to do that. Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then the last two areas I was going to touch on, which I did already sort of for the Parks and Recreation, cost recovery on page 176. The cost recovery target was 45% according to the policies, and we're at 46%. And that is for 2024 as well as the 5-year average. The other cost recovery I was just going to highlight is on page 139, and this is for development services. Had a really good year, so our, whoops, wrong page. Our cost recovery is about, let me just get to that page. I marked the wrong one. On page 139, cost to recovery was 144% in 2024, but if you look at over the 5-year period, it's about 103%.
Wow.
So really that concludes my presentation. And if there's anything that you'd like more information on, I'm happy to address those.
Thank you, Ms. Kraus. Any questions? It's a lot of work that has gone into this, and I really appreciate that. As you are noodling over the figures, looking at, I know, jumping ahead a little bit to the first quarter of 2025, are you more hopeful
I'm hopeful but cautious.
Mhm.
So I'm hopeful or feeling good because we brought in a lot of revenues.
Mhm.
And so the city council has asked, like, if we're using economic development opportunity funds, should we be rebuilding that? That's an
Mhm.
area that we probably want to explore.
Right.
You'll see some numbers after the first quarter. And then as we head into the mid-biennium budget adjustments, that'll be a consideration. I did take a quick look at utility tax. It looks a little bit more promising. So
One of the things we heard from, I think, Ms. Newton, a meeting or so ago, is just the increasing number of licensed businesses in Lakewood, whether small, home-based, or large. Do you see that in the numbers as well?
I didn't get to that part yet. So
Mr.
I
Caulfield?
will get some.
Yeah.
If I could just address that for the council, currently there's over 2,800 businesses in Lakewood, which is a significant increase. As a matter of fact, just in first quarter of this year, we've added 105 new businesses, which is pretty incredible. But there's 2,800 businesses, 1,100 of them are actually home-based business, and that's just a reflection of the changing economic environment. Also on top of that, there's about another 1,800 businesses that come into Lakewood on a daily basis and do business in here that are based, throughout our region. That upward trend in new businesses is reflective of the number of employees, workers here in Lakewood, and we're approaching 33,000 workers. And what's interesting about that, about the last 9 years or so, there's been about a 10% growth. And so that's a little over 1% per year. You might not think that that's a large amount. However, that actually outpaces regional job growth, statewide job growth, and federal job growth. So the city of Lakewood is actually doing better than what we're seeing countywide, statewide, and nationally. In addition, the largest sector of our workforce is now healthcare. And it's upwards of about 37%, over 12,000 folks are employed in healthcare, which are higher paying jobs. Years and years ago, it used to be retail. Retail is actually a smaller component of our total workforce, which is actually, it's a good thing. But there's still a demand for those services out there. But also the retail world has really changed because everything has gone online, or it's takeout or delivery or things along those lines. But again, the good news is where we are seeing the job growth is in the higher paying wages and the higher paying industries. So a lot of positive things happening on an economic development front. And again, it's a reflection of the changing environment. How our economy operates today is nowhere near how it operated 10 years ago, and has completely turned upside down from where it was certainly 20, 30, and 40 years ago.
Well, and despite the, there's really it's not a plethora of positive tools in the quiver that we have to incentivize small, mid, or large businesses to locate here, other than the good environment, the infrastructure, the lack of any B&O tax. Anything else we're missing?
That's absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. And I would just add, why do we have such a vibrant and robust business environment? It's because of our great neighbor, Joint Base Lewis McChord. We hear over and over again that the reason that businesses are here across the spectrum is because of our service members and their families. And the fact is that JBLM is a $15.1 billion economic engine, of which we are host community to. We have 7 gates that either open up directly or adjacent to the base. And again, that reflects very positively on the Lakewood community and the businesses that are here. But again, a lot of it is driven by Joint Base Lewis McChord. And that relationship goes back well over 100 years now.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Kraus or Mr. Caulfield? Mr. Loricella?
Thank you, Mayor Whalen. Just a go back, and it's just for me to understand things. When we talked about the recovery ratio for development service permits and fees, if we had a 100% recovery ratio, that would mean that we're exactly right where we need to be, and that our fees and permits pay for what it costs to actually do the work. Is that right?
If you look at it in terms of the cost to issue the permits, yes, it would be at 100%. We would be paying for the time that is spent on the permits itself. If we fall short, then we are, or if we are achieving more than the 100%, then we're paying for those other types of services that are not permit, but they are supporting the permitting process.
Okay, thank you. So is our target 100% or
Our
what are we
target
aiming
is
for?
actually by policy is 85% cost recovery. Yes, and over the past few years, we've seen it greater than the 100%, but then there have been years where we've seen it less than 100%. We have some major permits that are going to be generating a lot of revenues, and I'm expecting that that's going to push up the recovery ratio for 2025.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
And Ms. Kraus, it looks like we have on page 243, the review of the 2025 carry forward budget adjustments.
Yes, this is another detailed report, and so I will turn your attention to the list that were provided on page 272. I do want to say that, with the.
Let us get there real quick.
Yeah,
That was on 243, but. Okay, 272, we're there with you.
so, with your council adopted financial policies, whatever we do on the budget side has to follow those policies. And I'm happy to say that we are in compliance with those policies in terms of the 12% ending fund balance reserves, as well as the operating income has to exceed or meet or exceed the operating expenditures. So we're good on that side. On page 272 is really just a summary of all of the proposed requests. You can see that we have some new ongoing requests, and even with those, we're still in a balanced budget. And then there are a lot of programs that are grant funded, and then a lot of them that are just continuation of projects. So things that the city council had already approved through some form, whether it be the adopted budget process or through approvals throughout the year. And so we're looking at the general fund starts on page 272. I've included a $250,000 increase for public defender costs in each year. And really that's just an estimate. 2026 could be greater than that. But just to get us some monies to be equal in both of the years. There's also, reductions in the court contracted services, about 70,000 or just under 70,000, that the city is going to be picking up more with these reduced revenues. We didn't spend, and towards the bottom of page 272, we didn't spend the Economic Development Opportunity Funds, so carrying over that $2 million. Excuse me.
That's
On
not been
page-
spent yet, right, okay.
On page 273, we have some internal service charges. So such as in the Property Management Fund, there are programs that the City Council already approved, including the janitorial custodial contract. And then all of these other programs have been approved. They weren't completed. We're carrying them over. Information technology, there's some continuation, but then there's also some new ones requests, and that's just by purely the invoices that we've seen come in. So for example, our police department had more work done or more storage requirements for the Axon licenses and storage, Celebrite, which is the cell phone forensics, and then Cradle Point also had some additional costs. So we're just asking for money to be able to support the operations that have occurred in 2024. And then on the, also as part of this, just taking a look at trying to preserve the general fund has always been our goal. So if there was opportunity to use other sources for capital projects, such as capital project savings. So, if you take a little bit here, take a little bit there, and we just accumulate it, we're returning some monies to the general fund in order to be able to fund some of these projects, but the capital projects themselves are still intact.
Can you tell me about the 1.271 on the LTAC grant allocation? It's
Sure.
removed under Fund 104.
Yeah. So at that time, we did the budget. We didn't know what the city council would approve for the 2025 grant. So we just stuck a number in there. Since the budget has been adopted, we're just truing it up. And so we had estimated 1,271,000, but then we added a whole bunch of programs consistent to what the city council authorized for the 2025 grant. So it's really just truing it up.
Okay.
So those are the top general fund changes which impact our operations. The other ones have been, allocated or using restricted sources or special dedicated sources for this.
Any concerns about, this is maybe a city attorney question, you got the defense fund increase, and then we have jail services going up too.
Yes.
What are the thoughts on those increases for Deer Lakewood here? It's challenging for all cities, for sure.
Yes. Oh, I guess our city attorney
Might
will.
be a question to the city attorney. And I think your question is based on the fact that we see the charges roll through. Your police department is now at full staffing, which sometimes can lead to increased numbers of arrests or cases referred. Right now, on the prosecution side, we're doing fine. And the defense is literally just trying to comply with what the state law is requiring. And we are expecting the exact numbers that your deputy manager has referenced. One of the things we're looking at, and through the ICMA veterans program that your city manager has been supporting, today we brought on board a new intern, and the first thing we asked her to do is do a breakdown of the kinds of cases that we're seeing in our court, because I'm going to share with you something that you probably know. We're being asked to be very stringent on, for example, retail theft, but at the same time, keep the costs down on jail and public defense, right? So it's saying two different things at the same time. So what we've asked this intern to do is break down our case types and figure out if there are some cases that might make sense to handle pre-charging. And also look at some of the other programs that we have going to see if there are ways to reduce the caseload without reducing accountability. It's a little bit of a needle to thread, but we may be coming back with you in future months to share with you what our overall caseload complexion looks like. There's a difference between a first-time shoplifter and somebody, and we do have these. I've talked to some of our police officers, people who come into these stores with tools that are designed to sort of thwart the scanners and things like that. Those are completely different people, and we might be able to handle some of them in a less expensive way and still be effective. But yeah, you're looking at some real cost increases there.
Yeah, thank you. Does that prompt any other questions, council members? Well, very good work. Ms. Kraus, anything else on this?
This will come back for a public hearing on May 5th, and then for your review and consideration for adoption, May 19th, I believe it is.
So certainly if we have additional questions as we digest this information further, we can reach out to Mr. Caulfield, who will get additional feedback for you from Ms. Kraus if need be before the time for adoption.
Yes, I'd appreciate that.
Great. Anything else? I think
I think that's it for me.
that's it for you.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. Finally, we have review of the fee schedule updates for PPW Planning and Public Works, and we've got our Public Works Director, Mr. Remack, and the Assistant Director, Ms. Silva.
Good evening. I always got to get a little lower so people can hear me. I don't mean to look like I'm doing a gangster lean, but I don't have much of an option but to get this close.
That helps because it's hard to hear.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council. This evening, we'll be going through the proposed fee updates as well as some Scrivener error fixes for the Planning and Public Works fees associated with permitting.
Great.
The purpose of the proposed fee change is really threefold. It's some housekeeping clarifications and correction of Scrivener error, like I've spoken to. The extensive reformatting that we did for 2025 had some of the fees that had dropped off. And then as well as looking at the cost recovery and permit intake review and inspection services and a predictable flat rate approach to permitting. So when people come in, they know what they're paying for as they start at the beginning. A little bit of background, last year in November, we went ahead and proposed the new fee schedule that came in. It moved forward as we were doing a massive restructuring and kind of stacking things by title and order. Some of the line items that existed in terms of permitting fell off. So some of this is Scrivener error and fixes to what we're looking at. And some of the new fees that were established that we were looking at had some Scrivener errors in them as well. So when we did the update before, and still stands true, we did an assessment of the other jurisdictions as to where we stood, and we fall below the average when we're looking at it to maintain affordable rates for people coming in and encourage people to come and develop in the city of Lakewood. I'll kind of walk through the amendment summary and what we're looking at. The administrative base fee. There were some questions as to what permits this applied to. This is an administrative fee for the handling of the permit and applies to all permits that come in. It affords us the ability to cost recovery in terms of if we process the permit, we put it in, and then a person decides to cancel it, we're not then losing money for the handling of that permit. Business licensing. We removed the fee for massage, and we're going ahead and processing it as a general business license at $90. Street opening, change reflects the actual fee. When we came in, it accidentally dropped to $0. It says right now in the schedule $120 when it's $1,200 because of the amount of time that's spent by staff in opening that. Shoreline substantial development permits removes the hearing examiner deposit requirement. SSDPs are a type 2, meaning they don't go to hearing examiner, so they don't have to have that deposit. So that's a cleanup of the code language and what we're looking at there for the permit fee. Shoreline conditional use permit and shoreline variance includes clarification language on payment of the hearing examiner deposit plus payment of remaining balance. Previously, it said this is a deposit, but there was nothing clarifying you must pay whatever remainder goes over. Should they have an extremely long hearing examiner, they would pay for that time, what they're looking at. Reasonable use exceptions removes the hearing examiner deposit requirement. Again, when we're looking at it, reasonable use exceptions are a type 1 decision in an LMC, so it didn't need to be there. So cleaning that up. Certificate of appropriateness, it is actually required when processed in the LMC. It dropped off the last go around, so we're re-adding it back in. And what we're looking at, it was never on the 2024 fee schedule, so we have to add it back in because it is a requirement by code. Design review, included back into the fee schedule. Design review was something we were always looking at. It was accidentally deleted. We went ahead and we were processing those at the previous rate so that we weren't losing where we were at. Fee is updated to reflect the $120 hourly. Director's interpretation included back into the fee table. No change in the fee that we had from 2024 for that. Temporary use included back into the fee table. No fee change from the 2024 rate. Zoning certification back in the fee table. Fee updated to reflect the $120 an hour rate. So it actually goes from $50 to $300 when we're looking at it. Short subdivision unit lot. We needed to add the fee to reference to include the new unit lot subdivision that came in as part of the legislature and a requirement. Unit lot subdivision is a new type of land division that we're looking at and part of the 2024 periodic update. So we needed to reflect that. Boundary line adjustment was added back in, no fee change. Home occupation addresses two types of home-based business on a level of review that's needed. So when we look at it, there's actually one that would be that goes to administrative conditional when we look at it, or one that is just a type 1 decision as we move forward. Sorry, I missed one line item above that for amendment. It's a type 1 through 3 major amendment type. Really, it's for when we go ahead and we look at a decision. So if we had a land use decision that was made, then a person needs to make an amendment to that decision. Previously, it did not have a minor major. It just said amendment. So it made it difficult. This one goes ahead and allots that if you're making a decision that falls below the threshold of like a hearing examiner, say you had a hearing examiner decision, but you're not making a substantive decision that is going to change the overall character or anything that's going on. Say you're removing a unit from a total number count. That's a minor decision that can be made. Doesn't have to go back to the hearing examiner. So it's addressing that fact because we ran into that a few times. Binding site plan alteration. We're going ahead and we're removing that as to what we look at as addressed in part of the minor and major. We don't need to have that as a separate line item anymore. Hearing examiner deposit and fees, we added language to clarify that this is a deposit amount and you're expected to pay any of the overage that goes. So if you have a large project that takes 2 days, then you'll be paying that time for the hearing examiner that they would be there. Cottage housing is currently allowed in the LMC, but was never included in the fee schedule previously. So this type of housing, along with others, is important to address housing unit need as part of the middle housing and some of the other housing legislative changes that have occurred. Development agreement, current allowance in the LMC accidentally was deleted, no change in the fee rate. Those are the work changes we're looking at that would classify as like Scrivener errors or omissions. And then the next we're moving through are more substantive changes. Here, the first one you'll see will be for the technology fee. It's an increase from 2% to 4%. The 4% is actually what is required to cover the costs of the technology that we utilize for permit review and software. So we have GIS costs associated with what we do. We have permitting systems. We have the review software, everything of that nature. When we did an assessment for what we were bringing in at the 2%, it was not covering the full cost of our technology services for permit. So this is an adjustment to make sure that we're getting full cost recovery on that because it directly supports permit issuance. All right. Most jurisdictions are in the 5% range in what we're looking at. So we're still below some of the others around us. Site development. We revised this to a 3-tier flat fee approach. Previously, when we went ahead and took a look at it, there was prices ranging from $920 to $16,000 on what we were looking at for the permit based on what the valuation of the site adjustments you were going to do, things of that nature. It was very hard to predict where we're at. We changed that. We're going to a 3-tier model. So the 3 tiers we're looking at are $650, $1,000, and $5,000 based on what you're doing in the work. It's very clear, very easy to read as you move through as to what we're doing there. Short-term vacation rental, new permit type that we're looking at, as we're familiar with, that's come on. And so that goes ahead, it's 2 hours at $120 an hour. That's supporting the processing of the permit. And then type 1 through 3, minor major modification to approved permits, which I spoke to earlier. It's that adjustment that gives us more latitude to adjust and be flexible when people are moving forward. That is the total of the substantive changes and what we were looking at.
Quite a few, frankly, but yeah. Any questions on changes, or how is that going to impact our cost recovery? Is it going to keep us in line, exceed?
It'll keep us in line. So when we look at the cost recovery, when the council set a goal of 85%, there's other work we do besides just permit review. So we look at it on the permit review to get 100% cost recovery on the permit review itself. The other portion will offset us in what we do because that is work that we cannot charge for. So that offsets and makes the total department cost kind of that 85% what we're looking at.
Very good. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Remack.
Thank you.
Thank you and your department for the recommendations. This will come back on what, the 5th of May again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That concludes the items for discussion tonight in this combined regular and somewhat study session agenda. We now turn to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. Just a couple of updates. The first is the city was recently contacted by a representative who's serving as the Washington State Coordinator for the upcoming celebration commemorating the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and it's called America 250 Anniversary. And the state of Washington's actually established a state committee that is chaired by our Lieutenant Governor, Denny Heck, to plan some commemoration activities. And the committee is eager to have some participation at all levels of the community across the state. And so they're working with the state to establish some committees and looking at events and stuff and how various organizations and entities, including cities, could perhaps plug into that. So a team of city representatives led by our communications manager, Bryn Grimley, recently met with the representative. And so kind of the highlights of the meeting are, currently there's no state or federal funding for the events. However, they are encouraging, cities and counties to incorporate the celebration into their existing events and not do something, special or different. For example, there might be a few dates in 2026 that, we could try and do, whether it's at a farmer's market event or, even Summerfest or something along those lines. There's no cost at all to participate. They do have are in the process of pulling together marketing tools and things along those lines and other materials that we can draw upon. And really, it's just about kind of getting in the queue and being listed as a partner on their website. There are a wide variety of organizations and groups that are already, including veterans groups that have signed on in Pierce County. For example, Parks Tacoma, Historic Tacoma, Visit Gig Harbor, Puyallup Main Street Association, Town of Steilacoom, Gig Harbor Chamber, Anderson Island Arts, City of Ording, Daughters of the American Revolution, and the Puyallup Fair, commonly known, or actually the Washington State Fair and Event Center, commonly known as the Puyallup Fair. And then Historic Fort Steilacoom Association right here in Lakewood. So after meeting with them and talking with them, unless there's any, concerns from the council, my recommendation is that we go ahead and join and kind of get in the queue and see what we can do to, help promote and just celebrate that event in 2026. So just leave that with you, Mayor, for under council comments if you wish. The other is our police department is kicking off their 2025 Citizens Academy. I think, as you know, it's an 8-week academy. It's going to kick off on June 10th and run through July 29th. It's every Tuesday evening from 6:30 to 9 p.m., though there is a Saturday set aside for just for the participants to be able to drive a police vehicle. And really, this is an opportunity for residents to learn about, how our police department operates inside and out. And registration does close on May 6th. So kind of another 3 weeks or so, it'll be open. So I just wanted to pass that on to you in the event that actually, if you would like to attend and participate. As it relates to your calendar, this Thursday, Lakeview Light and Power will be hosting their annual meeting right here in City Council chambers at 6 p.m. On Saturday, we have our annual Parks Appreciation Day, and it's scheduled from 9 to noon. The parks that the city has identified some work tasks include Harry Todd Park, a community garden, Springbrook Park, Kiwanis Park, Edgewater Park, and a number of locations down at Fort Steilacoom Park. And then, as previously noted, we have set aside at the noon hour if you have an interest in, touring the H Barn and taking a look inside that. Next Wednesday on April 30th at 6 p.m. down at the Fort Steilacoom Park Pavilion is the West Pierce Emergency Management Coalition. We'll be giving an update on emergency management and how the city of Lakewood partners with not just the fire district, but the city of University Place and the town of Steilacoom as it relates to emergency operations and emergency response here in West Pierce County. Moving out into May, on May 7th is the annual Pierce County Law Enforcement Memorial, which will be held this year in University Place at Our Church on 67th Avenue. On May 17th, on Saturday, is our youth fishing event at Harry Todd Park. And then on following week, on May 21st, from 7:30 to 9 a.m., LASA is having their annual fundraising breakfast at the McGavick Center. And then that same afternoon on May 21st, the Clover Park School District will again be hosting their Arlington project. And I know many of you are familiar with that, and that's just a very wonderful event that the Clover Park School District and the students over there make available for the community to recognize those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. On May 22nd, which is a Thursday, South Sound Military and Communities Partnership, SSMCP, is having their elected officials council meeting at Eagles Pride Golf Course. And then later in the morning from 10 to 1 p.m., Puget Sound Regional Council is hosting their annual General Assembly in downtown Seattle at the Convention Center. And then just to finish out May, since I started on May, already started into it, May 28th is it's a Wednesday afternoon from 4:30 to 6. Going to have our volunteer recognition event again down at the pavilion at Fort Steilacoom Park. And then on Friday, May 30th, we're going to kind of kick off the summer, if you will, with a street festival at the Colonial Plaza from 4 to 7 p.m. And then on Tuesday, June 3rd, Farmers Market will kick off at Fort Steilacoom Park from 2 to 7 p.m. So no, that was a lot, but we do have, we'll posted all of that on your calendars.
On the calendars, right?
So, but with that, Mayor and Council, that's what I got.
I think you skipped one event, a major event. I think it's Tuesday, May 27th, all right? Are you going to show up to that one, Mr.
It's not,
Caulfield?
it's not ringing a bell, Mayor. Got a little,
Yeah. You put that on your calendar?
senior citizen now,
perhaps?
Mayor, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it is at his house. That's right. You're right.
What's happening in my house?
Oh, now he's paying attention. Now he's
Yeah,
paying
now
attention.
you got my attention.
Yeah.
I-
Community celebration of all things Caulfield, I think is what I saw on the bulletin boards or the billboards.
Bulletin
website.
boards,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
In the locker rooms and such, is that
Yeah.
what you?
Post office, I think. I saw.
Yeah, I was down at Studio Fitness this morning. I didn't see nothing down there.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put something up.
But, thank you for that, Mayor.
Very good.
I'll
Any
let
other
you,
questions?
I'll let you cover that.
Yep, happy to do it. Any other questions on calendaring or other issues for Mr. Caulfield? Great. So let's briefly turn to council comments. We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Went to the cops versus teacher tournament. It's, kids always love going down there and watching basketball, and my son thinks that he's gonna see Steph Curry wherever he goes watch basketball. So I assured him that there was no one portraying Steph Curry at the cops versus teacher, but we did see some good basketball, so it's for a good cause. So that was good. And then I just appreciated everyone showing up tonight and making comments. You know, they really are valuable comments, and it's great to hear from people in the neighborhoods that these areas are close to or maybe affected by. And so, and it sounded like, you know, largely most of the folks were educated on what the real kind of issues were, and people kind of had a good understanding of that area is already zoned for apartments, but this is really about, you know, the incentivization, so to speak, of apartments in those areas. So, which I think has not been true in the past. I don't think that people were kind of, you know, connecting the dots on those. And so it was good to see that people are, you know, fully focused and paying attention to some of these things and kind of having a good grasp on it. So that was good to see. So just wanted to say that I appreciated everyone's comments, and thanks for showing up.
Thank you. Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. So I too wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight. I thought that their love for Lakewood really showed, and that's what I appreciated the most about it. There was great public engagement and the comments, and I thought a majority of the people were very well informed. Like Councilmember Pearson said, they knew that the areas were zoned already, and I appreciated that they were educated on what was happening. So I just wanted to thank them all for showing up and coming tonight. And then I will attend the Lakeview Light and Power meeting on Thursday as our council representative and as a resident. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll turn to Councilmember Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to echo what fellow council members have said, that it was really refreshing to see chambers full of people who love Lakewood as much as we do and are passionate about it. So that was really refreshing. And I hope people keep showing up and speaking out for other issues that they care about. It's good to see a room full of folks. A few less folks now as the meeting goes on, but I do appreciate the folks who do turn out. And when it comes to the multifamily tax exemption, it is a tool to incentivize housing development in strategic areas where we want to incentivize it. If we incentivize everywhere in the city, we incentivize nowhere. So we have to be really strategic about where we put it and listen to the residents when they have concerns. With that, I agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation to not extend that to the area that we were talking about, and instead to focus on the areas that we have already established. With that said, those areas are zoned for multifamily housing. If a developer chooses to do that without the incentive, that's up to them. That's all I have to say about that topic. I attended the South Sound 911 meeting last week, and that organization is launching their recruitment for their new executive director. So if there are folks who are qualified and interested, I encourage them to apply. And I'm looking forward to Parks Appreciation Day and the H-Barn tour on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really enjoyed the cops versus teachers game. Baron Coleman and a host of other people really do put a lot of work into that, and he ends up with a lot of sponsors. So there's a lot of really active community involvement in that, and raising money for ALS, hopefully finding a cure someday. And I think he did a really nice job. And by the way, the silent auction is still open. So I think it's open till the end of the month or something like that. Looking forward to Parks Appreciation Day on Saturday. And, you know, it's always a great day, and hopefully the weather will be, you know, decent. Not sure where I'm going to go yet, but I am going to try to make it at noon for the H Barn tour. I'm surprised. Maybe the mayor will bring it up, but I thought the mayor and Councilmember Bell were going to Smash Burger or whatever on Friday night with the youth council. I have that on the calendar here. I wasn't planning to
Friday
go.
night anymore.
We don't. Okay. So, I do appreciate the mayor's remarks. You know, it's nice to get a lot of folks, and I do appreciate the mayor's remarks that he made. This is math, right? This is math and then art. So there's brutal math behind, you know, nobody in this city is waking up saying, hey, what a great idea. We'll have 85,000 people here in a few years. I've never once met one person who said, yeah, that's a great idea. That's the best idea I've heard in a long time. Nobody anticipates or wants to have 85,000 people yet. Here we are, right? And we have to show in the math, and our staff does the math and counts the numbers. And remember, it only gets worse, right? Every 5 or 10 years when we do, and I guess the next one will be Vision 2060, it'll be worse. So what I would say, without touching on the multifamily tax exemption, is in the lifetimes of some of these folks in this room, every neighborhood is going to get touched by this. There's eventually going to be no one that is who isn't going to be living in a neighborhood that isn't touched by this push for density by the state of Washington. They're not going to increase the UGA boundaries. In fact, they're in the process of decreasing them. They've actually took UGA out, I think. So the pressure will continue to get worse. It's not going to be better. So what we did with the downtown plan, which I still believe in, and the Station District plan, which I still believe in, is just the start. Tough news to break it to everybody. But I do appreciate the remarks to that there's math and art, and we can't escape the math. We can try to do the art, but it's not an easy thing for the councils and staff to do. And there's no magic wand. And some of the suggestions that were made, hey, just shove it over here. That gives us exactly the same issue. And in some of the neighborhoods they're pushing towards, there's already apartments. There's already thousands of apartments, right? And it's like, and in fact, some of the things the Planning Commission asked for, it's like, well, there's already thousands of apartments in the area. And so, you know, we'll see how it transpires, but appreciate the remarks, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to also say that how much I appreciate the conversation about that we had a public comment. I experienced that, so I know how they feel, but it's mandated. There's nothing we could do about it. Not here, but when I lived in Tacoma, I had a nice greenery in my backyard, and all of a sudden, every tree went down and there was a house all along the way. So it happens. I understand their feelings. I can identify with their feelings as well, but it's something that is mandated, and we have to follow law. I do appreciate the mayor expressing the fact that they need to attend the town halls to share their concerns with the people that are making the rules and the policies. So I appreciate that for you, Mr. Mayor. On Friday, I attended Rotary, where our city manager gave a state of the city. He did a fantastic job. Mr. Mayor threw me under the bus, but I accepted that. But what I wanted to share was the fact that after the meeting, several people came up and thanked us because they had no idea of the things that we have accomplished in the city, how they got to that point. And so it was an eye opener. So if anytime we have an opportunity to share stuff like that, I think is a good opportunity for people to understand what we go through and how we come to the decisions that are made. We don't just dream them up. And so I did attend the Communities in School breakfast. That was a lot of fun. Well done. A lot of people came out for that. Let's see. Saturday, I plan to be out, but I'm not sure where, but I will be at the H1 at 12. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciated the public comment as well. I hope that my comments didn't come across as defensive rather than explanatory. I'm trying to articulate the desire to have feedback on those policy decisions that are before the council, because certainly they do impact our neighbors and our neighborhoods. And for that, I am most appreciative to receive quality, well-intentioned public comment. I think the concern as a policymaker we have is when public comment may be motivated by fear of the unknown or fear based on perhaps half-truths that are circulating or whatever you want to describe them as. And that's what disappoints me and frustrates me, and I guess exposes me to be mocked by any other commenter that may be out there, which is fine because we're public folks and we receive the good with the bad. But the important part of what we do is to educate and to provide information that gives the public a sense of the same facts that we are dealing with. Because, we often say we're all entitled to our own opinion. We're not entitled to our own set of facts. And part of the fact is that we are dealing with a plethora of state mandates, additional mandates that continue to work to erode local control, and that certainly legitimizes the concerns that neighbors have. I get it. But as I think we've all tried to articulate, we are trying to make lemonade out of lemons a bit when it comes to housing density in our residential areas and certainly within the urban core. And I, like Mr. Boki and others, felt somewhat positive about the sub-area planning process we went through with significant public input and many, many community meetings and significant traffic studies and a lot of good staff work that, again, was an effort to identify locations where it made sense as a matter of policy to promote density with or without the multifamily tax credit, but certainly from a matter of zoning. So more to follow on that, but again, I echo the comments and appreciate the people who are here expressing concerns over the policy issue before us. On Monday, I attended the Pierce Transit 45th anniversary celebration, recognizing 45 years of successfully providing transit services to our community, including the great city of Lakewood. During that particular event, there were a lot of folks in attendance, and the great comments that circulated about Pierce Transit were about the issue and the fact of impact. Pierce Transit has certainly not only impacted the community in which it provides transit services, but, you know, selfishly, Pierce Transit has impacted Lakewood admirably. They're one of our largest employers. They have done some significant capital construction work that has certainly helped us from a tax standpoint, you know, from development fees and sales tax. And, you know, their employees do yeoman's work in adopting a street on South Tacoma Way. They pick up trash for us. They also pack food for Emergency Food Network. So they are a really good partner for Lakewood. And so I was pleased to extend comments and our appreciation as a council to them as a speaker at the 45th anniversary on Monday. And then we had later, of course, that week, we had what did we have? We had Mr. Caulfield presenting the state of the city. Did a fantastic job, Mr. Caulfield, and he got pretty close to a standing ovation for his last state of the city before Rotary. So everyone appreciated the presentation, and most importantly, they appreciate him for what he's done for this community. Later that evening, the Cops versus Teachers basketball game. I attended that with several of you, and again, hats off to Mr. Coleman and his group. And you know, the touching thing was the reason we were there in part was to raise money for a community member. And it was, you know, Tom was great, you know, sitting down there struggling with his medical condition, and his spouse, Kim, gave us all a big hug and was incredibly impressed and moved by the level of community support to come out for their family, to raise money for awareness for ALS. And so, you know, it really is about impact and this community, and we all do what we can in different ways. And so thank you all for being there. And then Pierce County Regional Council, I attended that via Zoom on Thursday. You know, another impactful meeting, but nothing significant for Lakewood per se, but it's always good to be there. So that was it for the week. Looking forward to Parks Appreciation Day, looking forward to the tour of the H Barn, looking forward to calling tonight, to be honest, but not before we have an executive session. So council will recess into executive session for approximately 15 minutes pursuant to RCW 4230-110 sub 1 sub I to discuss with legal counsel litigation or potential litigation. We will not take action following the executive session other than to adjourn this meeting. So right now we'll be in executive session.